Welcome to episode 10 of The Rational Homer. I am your host, Kyle. Andy will join us shortly as he is still reeling from another disappointing weekend by Jordan Spieth after a solid first day. Today is May 4th. As many of you celebrate Star Wars Day, I am not too interested in that. And college basketball is back in the news cycle as TJ Otzelberger signed a huge extension last week for $60 million. And the 5 for 5 rule was passed, which we'll get into more, but basically players are eligible for 5 years now instead of four, and that does not roll back into this basketball season that just ended. Otherwise, that would create a complete mess in the transfer portal. And then finally, of course, I'll be talking about baseball again, as the Cubs are coming off a sweep over the Diamondbacks in Chicago over the weekend, and they are in first place in the NL Central. Welcome in, Andrew, joining us for another week on the pod. Last week, Iowa State signed TJ Otzelberger to a 10-year contract extension for $60 million, which raises, obviously, his average annually to $6 million a year. A lot of interesting comments on this. Him being a heavily sought-after coach, given his defensive prowess, and it was kind of an overall interesting decision by Jamie Pollard, and even though his buyout still remains fairly low at $4 million, and honestly any top school can easily manage that. What are your thoughts on this news, Mr. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks for having me. We took a week off, slower news cycle this spring, other than your beloved baseball. But um, I guess I wasn't really surprised by it because you had to lock him down. I think like you said, keeping that buyout low favors TJ, obviously. So he still kind of protected himself if he wants to leave, although he already turned down at North Carolina. So I think he got what he deserved. Iowa State locked up who they wanted. And I think it was a good deal for both sides. I mean, he has three Sweet 16s and a Big 12 title. No Elite Eights yet, like a coach across the state, but we'll just pass on that for now. But yeah, happy for you and your Cyclones.
Yeah, I mean, 5 for 5 at NCAA tournaments. I think a team that was, 2-22 overall in his first year and took that team to the NCAA tournament. I'm just overall very pleased with his recruiting efforts and the team he builds. And, we look at things, and he already has 4 20-plus win seasons, which is almost already top in program history, one behind the legendary Johnny Orr, already tied with Fred Hoiberg with 4. Yeah, just a lot of good things. He's has the highest overall winning percentage and conference winning percentages in Iowa State history. So that just kind of speaks to maybe how consistent he's been for us. And just a lot of, I think a lot of people worry about, or not so much you, but specifically your brother, Tomas, actually. He said, texted me when TJ was in year 2. Oh, TJ's going to be there another year and he's going to leave. And obviously, we're just getting over the whole Matt Campbell situation of him leaving Iowa State, and that still kind of stings a little bit. But I mean, I think TJ is so in love with Iowa State, and I think part of the reason I don't think he'll ever leave Iowa State, I mean, that's what I thought about Hoiberg too, but I don't think he'll ever leave Iowa State is because when you look at his track record, he was with Iowa State during the Hoiberg era. He got passed over for Steve Prohm. But do you know what a lot of people I don't think realize? He stayed on as an assistant coach when he was passed over for Steve Prohm. He stayed on for 1 year before going to Summit League in South Dakota State and getting 2 NCAA appearances there in 3 years. I mean, just him staying on after being passed over, I think speaks to his love for Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, the combination of him being a really good coach and just liking being at Iowa State is huge for you guys because, like we've seen with this coaching cycle this spring, it doesn't seem like the Blue Bloods can just hand pick their coaches anymore and just get like whatever top name is at some smaller, not necessarily smaller, but program below them. we've seen coaches turn down jobs to stay where they're at. And so honestly, I think this is huge for Iowa State because they clearly have a coach that would be wanted by any of the best programs, and they just got him to commit for another 10 years. So I think that they're in a good position. Like short of something happening, like you said, where he could always leave. But and what you just mentioned about how he stuck it out even when he didn't maybe get the job when he wanted it, just shows that I think this is where he wants to be, versus just chasing like where can I get the most money at the biggest program type thing.
Yeah, I mean, his wife went to Iowa State. I mean, he has so many ties to Iowa State. It's just, it seems too good to be true sometimes. But just the way he talks about Iowa State and, everything, his commitment to the players, his commitment to the players excelling off the court as well. As this past semester, they posted a 3.39 GPA as a team. I think this really speaks to kind of how he wants to build a program and how he will continue to only recruit people that represent the standards that he sets.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you guys have a coach that is there for Iowa State and not just for a job. So it's big news to get that extension signed. Not sure how long they've been working on it because it feels like it could have been announced a little while ago, but maybe they were just ironing out the details.
Yeah, yeah. And did the team out east, did their coach get an extension after his Elite Eight run?
Well, it says they're working on it, but that's a good point. There's nothing publicly announced yet.
Okay, I mean, Kansas might open up in a few years, and yeah, it's just kind of a scary thing.
For sure. I'm hoping that Beth gets it done and McCollum does something like TJ 10 years to give him 20 years. I'm kind of open for whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, and going back to your earlier statement about, the Blue Bloods not being able to pick their coaches, I mean, North Carolina went to the NBA and got a retired NBA coach to lead their team, which we'll see how that works out. But it is interesting how times are changing, not only in the NIL perspective, but also how it seems like coaches are really looking long term more so now than looking to jump from team to team. How can I go here to make this jump to here? Seems like they're being a little bit more consistent in their decisions.
Yeah, and I wonder if like the fact that they can pay players and most programs have GMs now to help out the coach with get not only finding players but more so negotiating with the players and their agents. And I wonder if you go to a program that has a really good NIL backing or you feel like it will long term, then maybe you're like, why would I jump to say a North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, Duke just because I mean, they all have a lot of money, but it just feels like the reasons to go there in terms of like their program tradition and stuff don't carry quite as much weight.
Yeah, and I mean, money isn't everything, and I think obviously everybody has a different perspective on that, but and also the pasture isn't always greener. Um,
Right.
but
Right.
just because they can pay you more, the pressure is also going to be more because they're going to expect more out of you as a coach, and some coaches don't want that responsibility.
Yeah, if you take a Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky job and you have a bad first couple years, you might be gone and now you're dropped back down to wherever you have to go to find a job. And then who knows if this thing you had like in Iowa and Iowa State ever comes back open for you.
Yeah, 10 study years at a school might be better than 2 years at a Kansas or North Carolina where you have two average seasons and you're out the door.
Right, exactly. So I'm sure TJ got what he wanted, and I think Iowa State got what they wanted. You would know better than me, but it seems like a good deal for both sides.
Yeah, does indeed. Next, we'll move on to the 5 for 5 thing about another year of eligibility for college athletes. Our next topic here with Andy is talking about the 5 for 5 rule that was passed and college athletes getting another year of eligibility. What are your thoughts on this, Andrew?
I mean, I like rules that are simple, so I like where this is going in principle. Like you come to college, you have 5 years to play 5 years. We have essentially built in an injury year, a redshirt year, whatever you want to call it. But let's get away from having these random like 24 plus year olds playing all these like court cases to see if we can get a random player fifth, sixth, seventh, sometimes eighth year in college. I'm of the belief that let's just make a standard rule and try to keep the NCAA from having to rule on all these individual scenarios that sometimes seem unfair, sometimes fair. I'm just of the belief that if we can make it simpler and easier to understand, that I'm totally for it. Because if you think about where we have been and five, like let's say you go to college and you redshirt, um, technically you're there for 5 years. So I don't mind if someone was healthy the whole time and got 5 years, but
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea of all these random scenarios of injuries, and I mean, even these people who like played in the European pros now or the G League and then trying to come back, like it seems like it was getting too complicated and people are just trying whatever they can to get players. Let's get some rules in place that are simple to understand and go from there. And I don't think it should be retroactive whatsoever. I think the guys that just graduated, you're done. Like, let's not open this back up to people who just finished.
Well, yeah, you know somebody's gonna sue, and try to get that back. I would think, but yeah, I mean, just to massively create, just rosters are already set for this upcoming season, basically. I mean, outside of the potential Milan Manchilovic returns to the college basketball, and who knows where he goes, but um, yeah, I mean, I just think it's if you pass a rule like that, you can't turn back time essentially and say, well, you know, I want another year just because this rule was passed, type thing.
Right. I just hate how let's just keep things moving forward. Here's our rule. It's not hard to understand. If you finished up, you're done. Don't try to get an extra year. Like for example, Denzel Aberdeen, who just played for Kentucky, he had transferred from Florida. He graduated. Now he's trying to get a fifth year back at Florida. And he's saying that like 1 year he only played 12 games because of injury. The rule in the in the past has been if you play eight or less, you can get another year. So he's just like filing or like he's like suing or bringing an appeal to the NCAA to give him another year. And it's like, what about playing 8 games or less? Are you not understanding? You played 12 games. Like it's done.
Yeah, and I mean that's a very interesting point. And I mean, rip to Jordan Bohannon in his 18 years that he played in college basketball, and the Perry Ellis's of the
Right.
world, and all those people. But I think it's a good thing. I will be interested to see how it affects um, high school athletes in the recruiting aspect because if people can stay 5 years, I'll be interested to see how that does. Will teams decide just to go young and let a guy transfer out in that fifth year, or will they, try to keep him? So I'm very interested in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with the high school stuff because you have some coaches you say they're hardly like prioritizing as much as they used to. And you still have some who are recruiting high school as if nothing changed. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to bring a guy in who you're like, oh, in 3 or 4 years he's gonna be the leader of our team, it just seems like anymore the families or kids or even their agents who are willing to accept that is just so much um less than it used to be. And you almost have to, in my opinion, you almost have to be like, all right, let's just go search freshman, sophomore from mid majors who are really good. And that was like their development years. And now we'll take them to our big program versus trying to get them out of high school.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of that, it will be good for some players to get paid for another year because some of them probably won't make it to the NBA or to even maybe even Europe, but they can secure another year of financial or steady income whatever that may be in the NIL situation. But yeah, I think, you have to consider both ends of the spectrum there. And you got, people that get an extra year so they can have a steady income because, they might be go working a 9 to 5 job after they graduate college. But then on the other end, on the flip side with the high school prospects, just how that goes, and they might not get to play as much right away. And I think that might also might build their character a little bit more if they have to wait their turn more so. And even if they are, a higher prospect, maybe they still don't get that playing time right away that they would be expected to have.
Right. And like you said, the reality is most college athletes, especially well, any sport, but most of them aren't going pro in terms of NBA. And even the like high level European leagues, this is a way for them to make as much money as they can with that extra year. And because of that, I think the quality of the product is going way up. You're seeing European pro guys now wanting to come play college because they know they can make equal, if not more, than their European contract. So I think NIL is drawing the best talent to the college game prior to the NBA. But it's just we'll have to see how each program like navigates their recruiting philosophy going forward if it truly ends up just being 5 for 5 and nothing with players who are already finished, and hopefully giving them some steady footing to like win all these upcoming lawsuits, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's gonna be. I would assume there's gonna be at least more than one. Um, Given what we saw previously with the NCAA football video game and how they won a lawsuit there about using player likeness and etc. etc. So I
Right.
think it will be a very interesting next couple of months for us here.
Agreed. We'll see. I It sounds like the whole retroactive thing isn't gonna happen. Like there was this whole like kind of slowdown of the portal because coaches wanted to see if they pass 5 for 5, are they gonna give it to the guys who just graduated? And then that would almost be like a whole new set of portal guys opening up. Doesn't look like that's gonna happen. So it feels like portal season's like slowing down, but then again, as soon as you think you know what's going on, it can just drastically change.
Well, yeah, and how many guys would be released from scholarship if they did allow it retroactively? Like, just thinking about that aspect. Because
Right.
so many people,
It'd be chaos.
yeah, it would be pure chaos. And, who knows if Bennett Sturts would come back and play for good old McCall in the year, but, hopefully that's something that we don't have to think about and they can move on with Coleman and their 7'1" center and we get a new era of Iowa basketball under McCollum.
We're in McCollum we trust. I don't know if that was a jab by you, but McCollum having certs or not, uh Elite Eight. Yeah,
Yeah, they still have one roster spot open, correct?
Yes, yeah. I'm kind of anxious. I haven't heard much at all, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there.
We will. And then we'll move on to baseball, and that will wrap it up for my podcast after that. Starting with the most important team, the Chicago Cubs, as they took over first place in the NL Central, and currently on a 5-game winning streak, pending the outcome of tonight's game against the Cincinnati Reds. They have a 2-game lead on St. Louis, 2-game lead on Cincinnati as well. The Central is still the only division with every team still above 500, which is very exciting news, especially as you look at the AL Central and how pretty much every team there is either at 500 or below 500. But the Cubs, 42 run differential, and really have just been pouring on the runs the past 2 weeks. Moises Ballesteros has been key from DH spot, doing very well. And Michael Busch is picking up a little bit, average-wise. He's on base a little bit more. Nico Hoerner is still doing his thing at the top of the lineup. And really just a catalyst defensively as well. He had an incredible play over the weekend against Arizona where he chased down a windy pop-up on Sunday and made a spinning acrobatic throw for the double play at first base. We swept the Diamondbacks over the weekend, as I stated in my intro, and just really solid all-around performance And for their pitching as well, took 203 from San Diego. Did lose 203 to the Dodgers. But the 203 from San Diego was huge as that wrapped up our West Coast trip last week. They returned home to Chicago for the weekend. Then we get Cincinnati at home. In addition to hopefully getting some more pitching back from injury. And the pitching has really been hit by the injury bug. Particularly the back half of the bullpen. Hopefully we get Danny Palencia back at closer. He was making a couple rehab starts over the weekend at AAA. He hit 102 to 100. And the Cubs will travel in the end of this week on the road to Texas and then Atlanta. And then they play the White Sox, which will be very interesting as the White Sox are hovering around 500 and doing pretty decent overall. And then we'll just start back at the top of the AL Central here and start with the AL East. And right now it looks like a two-team race between the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. As Tampa Bay is 9-1 in their last 10 games. They have 11 run differential. The interesting thing about Tampa Bay is they don't really have a bona fide superstar offensively. They have Junior Caminero, who was kind of a very good prospect for them a couple years ago. And they got Jonathan Aranda at first base. Chandler Simpson is a speed demon for them in the outfield. And they got Cedric Mullins, who formerly played for the Baltimore Orioles and is actually a pretty sneaky great player. But with the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays only being a game apart, and then it drops down to Toronto being 7.5 back. Right now, it looks like that those are really the only two teams competing for the division, as the Red Sox just aren't even on the map, and the Orioles have lost 4 in a row at this time. Moving on to the Central, we got the Guardians in first, 1 game above 500, and they're just barely ahead of the Tigers, who are at 500. And the White Sox are only a game and a half back. And the Tigers did get some awful news today, as their ace and honestly franchise player, Tarik Skubal, had surgery on his elbow to remove some, I believe, bone fragments, or spurs as they call them. And he's going to be out 2 to 3 months, which really makes the off-season signing of Framber Valdez super important if they still try to be competitive in the AL Central, but I'm sure they're taking a bit of a hit tonight as their team receives that news today. Going out to the AL West, you got the Athletics still in first place at 18-16. Pretty much all these teams out west are playing about average baseball, about around 500. Most of them are 5-5 over the last 10 games, or just 1 game off at 6-4 or 4-6. And the Rangers are in second place, 2 games back, and the only team with a positive run differential is the third place team, the Seattle Mariners, and they're at +2. But they're also on a 3-game losing streak. So there's that. The Angels are bringing up the bottom of the division at 13-22, but they're only 5.5 back. But I think that's kind of to be expected with the Angels. They kind of went on a run there where they were hot offensively for about 1 week, and that kind of put them close, a little bit closer to the top of the division, and then they just kind of fallen off as they're 2-8 in their past 10. They're moving over to the National League East, and I think the Braves are the faraway favorites as they're 9 games up on the Marlins and the Nationals, and they're 15 games above 500 overall. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. But the sneaky team that might make a comeback here is the Philadelphia Phillies, as they fired their manager, Rob Thompson, about a week ago, and Don Mattingly replaced him. And since then, they've been making a little bit of a comeback. They're only 5 games below 500 now. They had a 4 or 5 game winning streak when Mattingly took over. Really just kind of sparked their team a bit. They're moving to the Central. We talked about the Cubs and how they're up 2 games and just how they're doing well. St. Louis is really surprising people as they're 6 games above 500, and this was kind of seen as a rebuild year. And Cincinnati's near the top with Sal Stewart and Ellie David Cruz is really doing well. And then you got Milwaukee and Pittsburgh kind of bringing up the rear. But they're both only 3.5 back, which this early in the season. That's not terrible at all. Then moving out to the West, you got the Dodgers, still atop of their division. They're the only team with a positive run differential in the AL West. The Padres are only half a game behind them. But they did lose Manny Machado for a bit, and they did lose 2-3 to the White Sox, then 2-3 to the Cubs before that. The Diamondbacks are 4.5 back at 16-17 overall, and then 8 games back are the Rockies and Giants. And I don't expect those teams to get any closer as the season progresses. They just don't have the talent and quite the talent like the Dodgers and the Padres do. And they're both on 5. They're both on a 5 or 6 game losing streak respectively. And it's gonna be a tough season for them to compete against the heavy hitters of the AL West. I'm shifting our focus back to the NL Central for a bit. It will be interesting now that the NL Central is starting to play each other a little bit more, and how that kind of shapes the whole, every team being above 500 as they play each other. Obviously, some teams are going to get knocked below 500, and just how all that surfaces. But we will see how that shakes out in this coming week and the weeks to follow. Alright, there's not too much exciting news across baseball. Obviously, your 1LT player highlights of people to watch would be Murataki Murakami from the White Sox, who is leading the American League with 13 home runs and is on pace for, I believe, 66 home runs. He's basically Kyle Schwarber, but of the American League. Other people to watch. National League, Elly De La Cruz is hot, as I mentioned right now. And Shohei is always fun to watch. And then the Braves just have a really solid lineup. Michael Harris has really come on for them over the last couple weeks in the outfield. About been a home run hitter. Kind of done it all offensively, getting his average up and just everything. So that's a good guy to watch. But other than that, it's not too much going on. Hopefully in the coming weeks, I will eventually have a co-host for baseball, so it'll be a little bit smoother of a segment. But I'm still kind of working out the kinks on that as well. And that will wrap it up for our podcast here for The Rational Homer. And I'll be back again next week with another episode. Yeah. And remember, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for sports-related content you'd like me to react to, send an email to rationalhomer@gmail.com.